Learn the breaking news currently involving interest in Matthijs De Ligt, who has put himself on the transfer market after not agreeing new contract terms with Juventus. In today's News Daily video, I'm going to focus entirely on De Ligt. I'll discuss the news, I'll discuss the player, give an analysis, as well as giving conclusions on what his signing could mean and why Thomas Tuchel would potentially want him. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please smash the hell out of this like button, especially if you want to see De Ligt here for next season. I need to continue to be ambitious and I'm going to go for 3k likes. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and without wasting any more time. Now, of course, let's actually start things off by discussing and breaking down the news. Multiple reports have been coming out from Italy, and we are now getting reports from England as well too, but I'm going to focus on the reports coming out from Corriere dello Sport, and I know I can just completely butcher their name, but basically De Ligt has confirmed he won't be signing any new contract extensions at Juventus. Now, the main reason behind why is the fact that De Ligt is very unhappy with the release clause inserted in these new contract demands. Juventus have inserted a release clause in the new contracts between 150 million euros and 120 million euros, which is something that De Ligt is not about. He would only entertain signing a new contract if there was a new release clause set at around 70 to 80 million euros. We already know that he's made very public comments in interviews about how he's been a bit dissatisfied with the lack of progression at Juventus, and this was not what he was sold when he first took that chance to sign for them. On top of this as well too, he has kind of stagnated in terms of his development, with question marks around the actual environment around Juventus, whether it's the best possible one to fulfill the full potential of De Ligt. And for me, this is where development is not linear. You know what I mean? If he was to come here, the guy can find new forms and levels here compared to Juventus. Now, reports in Italy are saying that Juventus would only sell De Ligt currently for his actual release clause, which is around 100 million euros, which is around probably what, 85 to 90 million pounds. On top of this, De Ligt is a very expensive boy. He currently is the highest earning player at Juventus. He's on around 7 million per year, with bonuses taking that up to around 10 million depending on whether he fulfills them. So he is incredibly expensive, and in a very cynical way, in which I'm going to admit and put my hands up, I can't help but feel like, are we literally signing Lukaku in defense? So now that we understand the news stories, you guys, it's time for me to share my thoughts and opinions and deep dive into this player. Is he De Ligt or is he the shit? Let's find out. So let's now focus on De Ligt. He has top experience in Europe, internationally, in Serie A and in the Eredivisie as well too. At 19 years old, he was the captain at Ajax, and one of the things that he's known for in his game is that leadership ability that he brings to the back. I would say stylistically though that De Ligt is more of a box defender compared to being like a ball playing defender or like a more proactive style defender. And if I wanted to make a very easy and lazy comparison, I would say that he's like a better version of Harry Maguire. Still though, since he signed for Juventus, he hasn't necessarily progressed and really evolved the style of play, but that comes down to many factors outside the actual player. And those factors are the defensive system that Juventus use. You know, it's a very compact back four where there's a strong emphasis on positional structure. And with someone like De Ligt, when he was at Ajax, he was the type of defender that was able to, engage in wide areas to help, stop counterattacks and close men down. I thought he had a very good relationship alongside Davinson Sanchez back in those days. And to focus on his strengths first, of course, he does have a strong reading of the game. He does have good anticipation. He's an absolute mountain of a man. He's an absolute colossus in the air as well too. And most importantly, he is a leader. He communicates, he controls that back line. And, to be a young player with those responsibilities, they do have really big factors for defense. And to be able to sign the next generation of leaders, especially now that we have kind of lost some of that in the back currently, I could understand the sense behind looking and showing interest for the player. There are some interesting stats around the player from last season. He was only dribbled past 3 times in Serie A, but at the same time, you guys, I just don't take stats blindly without context. I'm all about watching these players to actually see what the numbers really mean. And the reality is, with how Juventus defend as a team as well too, it's not like De Ligt is in positions where he's naturally engaging with a lot of like 1v1 duels. And also technically, if you were to foul your opposition, then that doesn't count as you being beaten. So I guess stats like contested dribbles give you more of an idea of how the player actually defends. But of course, one of the main criticisms around him currently is the fact that even though he has been good for Juventus, he hasn't necessarily stepped up and really exploded and shown levels playing for them. And for me, I think a lot of that does come down to the environment personally with how he's used. And just because he isn't excelling at Juventus does not tell us at all that he could not come to us, be in a better environment with a different coach, and find new form and new levels. Now we have a brief understanding of his positives. Let's talk about some of his negatives. Now, I did mention the fact that, there are some comparisons maybe to Harry Maguire in terms of his style and how he defends. I feel like with players like him in particular, it's about having that defensive support and protection around them. I think when they're isolated, for example, maybe their defending style can actually cost them. With De Ligt having a big emphasis on using his strength and his upper body to get in front of his man to win the ball. But that means that if you are a talented winger and if you can anticipate when De Ligt is about to, make a tackle against you, you can spin him, you can beat him. And this is where the flat-footedness of the player does come out. And this is where he literally won't be able to get back, track back, and make recovery runs to win that ball back. I would also say too that even though he is comfortable on the ball, don't expect any type of Thiago Silva playmaking out the back from him. I think the last thing I'd say about his passing too is that sometimes he might not play forward as quickly enough. A lot of times if you're looking to break down a team, the speed in which you play out from the back is very important. And I think at times maybe he can get caught a bit sideways at times and doesn't play that forward pass quickly enough to find his man. And this is why I make my point about his time at Ajax. Ajax, when you got Frenkie de Jong receiving deep in the pivot, that's taking a lot of responsibility away from your passing game in that sense. So I'm not saying that he could never improve upon that, because the guy is composed on the ball. He is young, and I think working under Tuchel, of course, can bring out more things out of his game compared to what's currently being shown at Juventus. And I'd also mention the fact that he still has mistakes in his game. Actually, he is 22 years old, but I think as football fans, we can fall into this way of thinking where every time we hear of a new name and a new signing, we automatically just place all these hopes and ambitions that they will literally fix every single issue that we currently have in our team. If you're signing De Ligt, you're signing him for what he brings now, and also the fact that he is someone that could find new form and has high potential. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have to fine-tune his game more, in terms of the anticipation, in terms of decision-making, mistakes. For example, when we beat them 4-0 at home, he had a very poor moment for me personally up against Hakim Ziyech, where he should naturally be in front of that ball, winning that quite easily. Instead, his deflected header ends up finding Reece James. And I have to say this for balance and fairness, I've seen Chalobah make maybe small similar mistakes like this, and he was instantly written off by large sections of the fan base, dismissing all the other qualities he brings. And I do personally feel like there's this thing where, if you have big money behind you, there's this psychological condition where people will allow you to make more mistakes compared to another player that maybe you never rated at all. So what I'm essentially trying to do is to paint a fair picture on the player. Of course, if he uses into his strengths, then he can explode. And I think this now is the common sense behind why Thomas Tuchel and the club would be interested in signing him. And for me, it's simply this: he is that Thiago Silva successor. Now, for me, I saw Silva's form dip near the end of the season. I think his games versus Real Madrid were just nowhere near as good compared to the high level he showed before. And I think that he was not as reliable as the season was starting to come to an end. Thomas Tuchel saw this, and I think he is planning on signing a player that can fulfill that central defensive role. And I guess from a long-term potential point of view, if you were to have Levi Cole on the left, if you had Koundé on the right-hand side and De Ligt marshalling them in the middle, defending that box, anticipating balls in behind, clearances, etc., you're looking at a potential back three that has height, aggressiveness, skill, ball playing, ability on the ball, aerial presence. I can go on. And I think all these guys together, especially if you let them build over 2-3 seasons, you're potentially looking at one of the best back threes in Europe. But to continue on, you need that leadership presence in the middle of a back three. This is why typically you see your Silvas or your David Luiz's at the time playing in that role, because they marshal that defense. And this is the exact role I see De Ligt playing in the middle of that back three. So now, before I end things off, I want to give my conclusions based on this. And I have to say this: De Ligt would cost a ton of money. And if we're signing him for potential, of course, if he's going to cost you 90 million plus a wage packet that could be around 10 mil per season as well too, the player cost alone is going to be out of this world. And for me, if you commit such large amounts of money on players like this, you need to make sure you have an exact plan of how you want to use them, because it's a commitment. If you commit to this type of transfer value, you're committing to using a back three for the foreseeable future, because I think to really excel De Ligt, him playing that middle role would be best for his career. And for me, that would mean that you're not going to sign a DM. And yeah, there are actually fair arguments on both sides that say the fact that maybe with a DM, it could allow maybe the forward players and the midfield players to have more license to express themselves and attack, which could lead to more goals. But we're not going to be in a situation where we could afford a DM and like a new middle centre-back signing in the same window. It's just too much money. So I need to know that there's a common sense and practicality behind this, because for me, I feel like, in my personal opinion, the money could be invested in better areas. In a market where Bremer is available, who won Serie A Defender of the Year, who for me can do more than De Ligt, it makes no sense to spend this type of money when players like Bremer are around for less, when players like Marc Guy, who's shown to be one of the best counter-attacking defenders in the league, who has incredible composure and ability to play between the lines, when these guys are available for a fraction of the price. Isn't necessarily the common sense thing to invest all your resources into one big signing at the back. And I want to make another comparison too. We sold Fikayo Tomori under Frank Lampard. I think for me, a lot of arguments I saw behind that sell was the fact that, for a guy that's good, why did Lampard just kick him out the team? Almost as if like Lampard was affecting his career, where for me, the reality simply was, at the time, we just had better defenders in front in Christensen, Rudiger, Silva and Kurt Zouma at the time as well too, which is going to make things very hard considering that Tomori was more likely to make a mistake compared to those guys at the time. Since he left us, he went to AC Milan and very quickly announced himself immediately in their first team, kicking out Romagnoli, who's on big money at AC Milan and has proven to be one of the best centre-backs in Serie A. If De Ligt is a mountain, then Tomori is a tornado, and he's shown with his 1v1 ability, passing between the lines, that counter defending, which I think is really important. That defending that allows you to play with a very high line. Tomori has the ability to recover and win back incredible challenges that De Ligt isn't able to do. And there are a lot of comparisons between who's actually better. And when you consider that Tomori is worth a fraction of the fee, and maybe has put in better performances over the past few seasons compared to De Ligt, it does bring up interesting questions for me that, wow, our fifth choice defender, is able to outperform someone who is seen as one of the most expensive defenders in the market right now. I'm not too sure, you guys. Like I said, I like your Bremers, I like your Guys. I think Bremer could be exceptional in the middle of a back three. And if we're signing De Ligt, knowing that he is not the finished article right now, knowing that we will give him that game time to improve, why is he deemed worthy of that patience compared to others in the team? I'm just putting out that question. I think ultimately, to end this point, if you're committing to the signing, you need to make sure you have a goddamn plan that is going to work, because we've had a habit as a club now, when you look at our most expensive top 10 signings, of most of these guys not elevating the team and taking us to another level. So we have to see what happens with this one, you guys. Expect more reports to come out surrounding De Ligt. As I'm saying, I'm not here to be saying this guy is crap and not good enough, but I'm just trying to talk about the relativity in terms of the fee actually costs and the output you could get from the player. So you guys, on that note, share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about this news? I'm the EFC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.